Coverage you can count on. WAAY 31 News at 6 starts now.
Last week's release of the findings of the Huntsville Police Citizens Advisory Council provided some answers to those demanding police accountability. But ahead of a response from the Huntsville Police Chief, some people are demanding even more.
It has been 10 years since a super system of tornadoes devastated the southeastern United States. And this is video taken of that day from the University of Alabama campus in Tuscaloosa. Tonight, we hear from people who survived April 27th, 2011, why that day changed their lives. Thank you for joining us on this evening of remembrance. I'm Naja Sherman.
And I'm Dan Schaefer. Our coverage begins in Marion County. In 2011, an EF5 tornado destroyed much of Hackleburg and Phil Campbell. Winds as high as 210 miles per hour destroyed entire communities. It was the deadliest tornado in Alabama history.
Today, the small town of Hackleburg held a memorial event to reflect on the storm 10 years ago. You're taking a look at the gathering from our WAAY 31 Sky Tracker. WAAY 31's Nicole Zedek spent the day at that memorial. She spoke with people who survived the devastating storm.
They told her how they marked the day that forever changed their small town.
On this day 10 years ago, the high school behind me was blown to the ground. In fact, most buildings and homes in Hackleburg were damaged in some way. But residents here are choosing to focus on the positives rather than dwelling on what was lost.
We lost everything that we had at the time, and just thankful that, our lives were spared, material things can be replaced. And
Erin Flanagan was a high school senior when the tornado hit.
We had to finish our school year in churches, actually.
She describes the tornado as something that didn't even feel like reality.
It was like a movie. That's how I've always described it.
But rather than think of everything that was lost that day, she chooses to think of the strength of her community.
I just try to look back and think of the positives that have happened, and all the people that come together to help us, and just blessed is just how I can describe it.
On Tuesday, Hackleburg held a ceremony to remember those lost and reflect on their growing community.
It's about, to me, one word, and that word is community.
They shut down the streets and formed a human cross, followed by 25 seconds of silence to remember the 25 lives lost. Although the ceremony was somber, it was hopeful as well, as people remarked on the resilience of their community.
It is amazing where you are at today compared to 10 years ago.
Reporting in Hackleburg, Nicole Zedek, WAAY 31 News.
10 miles northwest of Hackleburg, Phil Campbell was the next town in the line of that deadly EF5 tornado a decade ago. People there say since the storm, nothing has been the same. Here are some of the sights and sounds from the tornado and its aftermath.
I got rotation coming through Phil Campbell right now.
It's like nothing you've ever experienced.
It's place safe!
It will never go away.
It changed not only the landscape, but just the complete makeup of town.
We learned what devastation and disaster really is. We also learned at the same time what compassion is.
Many people remember where they were when the deadly tornado outbreak happened. Al Jackson and his brother Chase were just 11 and 5 years old when a tornado ripped through their neighborhood in the Anderson Hills community. They told us even though they were children at the time, it's a day they will never be able to forget.
I remember specifically feeling the wall shake as the tornado was passing by, and then waiting for about another minute. Remember hearing Mom and Grandmommy just praising God that we were all good, that nothing else was happening to us physically.
The brothers said their house was damaged, but thankfully everyone inside was okay. They both helped their neighbors clean up after the storms. Let's get some more insight on those storms from Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna.
Kate, there were hundreds of confirmed tornadoes that day. Show us the track of a few of them and explain the conditions that made them so destructive. We had really conditions off the charts for that day on April 27th, 2011. Definitely one of those not just textbook scenarios, but one that we very rarely see, a high-risk day across North Alabama as the epicenter of that high risk from the Storm Prediction Center. Now, what we've got here is a map from the National Weather Service. Great resources if you'd like to dive into this in a little more detail. That's available on our website on the weather tab. I've provided you the link here, and you can track each one of these tornadoes. But I think what's most jarring about this, each purple track that you see here, that's an EF5. On average, we see less than one EF5 tornado per year. 3 touched North Alabama on April 27th, 2011. Of course, the deadliest tornado of that day in Alabama, the Hackleburg-Phil Campbell EF5, starting in Marion County, not lifting until it crossed the state line into Huntland, Tennessee. Join us tonight for an in-depth look back at some of the hardest hit areas, the communities that came together to rebuild, and the people who will never be the same. Stay tuned for our special presentation, Changed Forever, the April 27th tornadoes. That's coming up in just under half an hour right after this newscast. In less than 24 hours, we expect to hear from Huntsville Chief of Police during a City Council work session. Chief Mark McMurray is expected to comment on the Huntsville Police Advisory Council's report and the recommendations that were released during last week's City Council meeting. Just before that meeting, the Citizens Coalition of Justice Reform and the United Women of Color started a new campaign for police reform. They also shared what they hope to hear from the Chief of Police when he finally speaks. Now, town hall meeting for Councilman Devin Keith is taking place right now. WAAY 31's Ashley Carter is at City Hall. Ashley, you were at the news conference earlier, so what do people hope to hear from the police chief tomorrow?
Accountability is what many people are hoping to hear from the police chief when he responds to the report. But what they ultimately hope to see is real change and police reform.
We are yet to receive communication from the leaders of this community that they will take responsibility and apologize to those injured mentally and physically during these events.
An apology and accountability for the way police acted toward protesters during the June 1st and 3rd protests are something the Citizens Coalition for Justice Reform says they are hoping Chief Mark McMurray will do when he speaks out about the report. But they aren't necessarily expecting one.
We don't expect anything, but we are hoping that they take responsibility and start building accountability from this point forward.
After reviewing the recommendations, the coalition says while they do agree with some, they believe there are deeper and systematic issues that need to be addressed with local police departments as well.
We do know that Huntsville police officers receive a lot of training already. That does not necessarily get rid of some of that discriminatory bias that some of the officers have, nor does it address the lack of relationship building in the communities or the lack of trust from officers to citizens and vice versa.
It's the reason the coalition also announced their public awareness campaign today on policing issues that they say go far beyond how police handle protests. They say it was perfect timing with the report coming out and the work session Wednesday. They hope by putting a spotlight on police reform in Madison County, it'll help drive the change they want and say is greatly needed with local law enforcement.
I hope it starts to foster real, honest communications between law enforcement and members of the community and forces real interactions so that we can talk to each other about what the shortcomings, perceived and truthful are on each side and find that happy medium that lets us all start to heal from all these various atrocities.
Leaders from the coalition are expected to attend the work session, and that work session begins tomorrow at 5 p.m. Live in Huntsville, Ashley Carter, WAAY 31 News.
Thanks, Ashley. As we mentioned, we expect to hear from Huntsville Police Chief Mark McMurray tomorrow to get his reaction to the findings of the Police Citizens Advisory Council. That council found that McMurray's officers need better training to handle large crowds and protests. It also found there needs to be better communication between McMurray's department, event organizers, and the community at large. We have reached out to McMurray for comment in the past, and he told us he needed more time to read the findings before responding. McMurray's comments are expected at tomorrow night's Huntsville City Council work session. That meeting starts at 5 p.m. The Morgan County Jail will get 105 body cameras for corrections officers to wear. The jail currently has a network of cameras inside the building. The office says this adds another layer of accountability. The Morgan County Commission approved the purchase this morning at an estimated cost of $995 per camera. With the additional cost of charging stations, the estimated total cost will be $120,000.
We've been on the warmer side of things today. In fact, it was the warmest day so far this year in Huntsville. We hit 83 degrees. Temperatures currently still holding on to the lower 80s in Muscle Shoals, 81. It's mid to upper 70s, though, in Guntersville, Huntsville, and Decatur. And a little bit of cloud cover rolling in on our WAAY 31 Air Care System Sky Camera Network. We may have too much cloud cover to make for a really great sunset, although be on the lookout here over the next hour or so. I think we're going to have a nice sunset, at least in parts of North Alabama. Across the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker early warning radar network, 3 radars showing a quiet picture on the rainfall side of things, but those clouds are going to be with us as we go through tonight, and they stay with us through tomorrow. So whether or not you're out in the yard this evening or just enjoying the nice weather on the patio, 73 by 8 o'clock, 71 by 9 o'clock. I'm tracking what's in store for your Wednesday, how much warmer it's going to be coming up.
The CDC offered some new guidance for fully vaccinated people on wearing masks outside. It's the next step toward a sense of normalcy.
Demand for vaccines is low across the state, but one demographic in particular stands out: the large age group that isn't helping the state's vaccination effort move forward.
Coverage you can count on. You're watching WAAY 31 News at 6 with Dan Schaefer, Naja Sherman, Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna, Sports with Lyndon Blake, and the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network.
I'm WAAY 31 Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna. WAAY 31 News alerts you first when weather turns severe, tracking storms over all of North Alabama with the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network. It's weather coverage you can count on, weekdays at 4, 5, 6, and 10.
Special baby! Deals so good, everyone's pitching in to help. Everything's on sale, except the baby.
Top reasons to visit the Buy Ford Now sales event. Number 4, you need your space, and Ford Escape has more of it. 3, you want only the best, and Explorer is America's all-time best-selling SUV. 2, the 2021 Bronco Sport is here. Oh yeah. And number 1, get great deals during the Buy Ford Now sales event. Now get $1,000 Buy Ford Now bonus cash on Ford Escape, Explorer, and Expedition. Only at your local Ford dealer.
I have never really considered that the police would do anything to harm my children, no matter what situation they would be in.
If an officer confronts you, please remain calm. The main objective is for you to return home alive and never, ever run away, even if you're scared.
Join us and help bridge the justice gap.
Is your credit score getting in the way of the things you want to do? Personal loans through NetCredit offer fast and flexible lending. Borrow up to $10,000 and choose repayment terms that work for you. You may even be able to build your credit history as you repay. NetCredit, a more personal loan.
At Kroger, keeping food fresher than fresh means being on your A game every hour of every day. Sure, it's more work for us, but it's more fresh for you. And that's why everything at Kroger comes guaranteed fresh, or we'll make it right. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Na, 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 na.
First 6-function multi-pro tailgate available in the GMC Sierra. Current eligible GMC owners get over $5,700 purchase allowance on 2021 Sierra light-duty crew cab models when you finance through GM Financial.
It's the first day of the first grade, and she found a new best friend. It's a laid-back Sunday afternoon you wish would never end.
The homemade taste of Bluebell and good friends gathered round. The good old days are being made right now.
I made a sale. Big Pop.
Deals so good, everyone's pitching in to help.
Papa says sale.
Everything's on sale, except the baby.
The WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network is brought to you by Conscience, Cole, Jordan, and Sherrod, attorneys at law.
It is now safe for fully vaccinated people to gather outside without masks on, and that's according to new guidance from the CDC. The only exception is in big crowds of strangers. The new guidance even loosens recommendations for unvaccinated people. Previous guidance says people should wear a mask outdoors at all times unless they could maintain 6 feet of social distance. The update comes as more than a third of Americans are fully vaccinated. The CDC released new guidelines for summer camps. One recommendation involves vaccinations for everyone who is eligible. WAAY 31's Olivia Schuler spoke to the director of a local summer camp, and she learned about the safety measures that they're taking.
Safety is the top priority at Pine Ridge Day Camp. They said they came up with their safety guidelines based off of state and American Camp Association guidelines. Camp director at Pine Ridge Day Camp says masking will be required inside but not outside. She says cohorts will make for smaller groups and that staff is encouraged to get the coronavirus vaccine.
Our staff go through a week-long staff training, and part of that this year is going to cover COVID protocols.
The camp is partnering with an app called Fever Free. It's a way for kids to monitor how they're feeling before they get on the bus and come to camp. Reporting in Somerville, Olivia Schuler, WAAY 31 News.
CDC guidelines encourage those participating in a summer camp to get vaccinated if eligible, socially distance, and wear a mask at all times. We're also learning more about demand for vaccines here in North Alabama. Right now, the vaccines are available to teenagers, but local health professionals tell us that they make up the smallest group of those coming in to get their shot.
WAAY 31 Sierra Phillips joins us live from Sand Mountain Family Practice in Albertville, and it's a clinic offering the Pfizer vaccine to people ages 16 and older. Sierra.
Now, if you're 16 or 17 and you're trying to get your coronavirus vaccine, you might run into a little trouble. At least I noticed that today. I called about 20 clinics, primary care clinics here in Sand Mountain, and this is the only one that I found that was offering the Pfizer vaccine, which can be given to that age group. Now, I met with Keisha Montgomery. She's a medical assistant here at the clinic, and she's helped to give out some of the 6,000 vaccines that they've given out since January. She says less than 10% of those vaccinations have gone to teenagers, and those teens' feelings towards getting those shots are more lukewarm compared to the older patients. Now, they're mostly just getting them because they say their parents are making them, but Montgomery says that shouldn't stop teens from getting the shot.
And it's important for teenagers, 16-year-olds, because they're going back and they're seeing mom and daddy and grandma and grandpa and great-grandma and grandma.
She added that even her 19-year-old son has already gotten his coronavirus vaccination. Now, according to the Alabama Department of Public Health, about 19% of people in the age range of 16 to 54 have gotten at least one coronavirus vaccination. Reporting live in Albertville, Sierra Phillips, WAAY 31 News.
Thank you, Sierra. A COVID vaccine clinic will open this weekend in Athens. You can call to make an appointment by calling the number on your screen. The clinic will be at Little Zion's Family Life Center on Lucas Ferry Road. You're asked to bring your ID and insurance card if you have one. The vaccines will be administered by Athens Primary Care Associates.
The state health department recommends a restart of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The shot was put on temporary pause earlier this month over concerns over very rare blood clots. But the CDC and FDA said the vaccine's benefits far outweigh the small risk. According to the state health department, more than 2.4 million Alabamians have had a shot in the arm. More than 1.3 million people received at least one shot. More than 1 million people are fully vaccinated. Australia agreed to vaccinate Olympic athletes ahead of the Tokyo Olympic Games. Australia's national cabinet said it includes athletes and staff heading to Japan for the Olympic and Paralympic Games. About 2,000 Australians will get the Pfizer or AstraZeneca vaccine. The opening ceremony for the postponed Tokyo 2020 Games is set for July 23rd.
Weather coverage you can count on with Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna and the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network.
A big weather headline today has been the warmth. It'll be the same tomorrow. We made it into the low to mid 80s this afternoon, maybe a degree or two warmer for your Wednesday. And overnight tonight, well, it stays dry and it stays very mild. The temperatures are only dropping into about the mid 60s by tomorrow morning. The rain is going to hold off. I know it's going to look like rain tonight and tomorrow, but it's going to hold off until Thursday into Friday. Here's where we stand currently with those temperatures. 81 right now in Muscle Shoals, close to 80 in Decatur and in Scottsboro at 79 degrees, 77 in Moulton, Athens, and Fort Payne, 76 in Fayetteville. Across the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network, it's a quiet picture at each one of our 3 radar sites. Muscle Shoals, we're not picking up on any rain right now. It's the same for Decatur. It's the same for Gunnersville. And we'll see a little bit of activity, but again, it's not going to be until we get to about the second half of the day on Thursday. If you've got a morning walk that you want to get in tomorrow, or just maybe sit out on the patio and enjoy your coffee before you head to work, 64 degrees by 6 a.m. We'll be close to the 70-degree mark between 7 and 8. It's not going to be a blue sky start to our day. We will have that cloud cover from start to finish tomorrow with a few peaks of sunshine in between. Future radar shows us this right around the 80-degree mark for the time being. So this data source is doing a good job of picking up on where we stand currently. As we go through tonight, you'll see all that cloud cover. This is what we wake up to on Wednesday, mid to upper 60s in some spots, but most locations we're talking mid 60s through the day. 230, low to mid 80s for highs. You'll see some breaks in the cloud cover there. No rain in the forecast tomorrow. Through tomorrow night into Thursday morning, this is 7 a.m. Starting with temperatures very similar to what we have tomorrow. And just look off to the northwest here. We've got rain that starts to approach North Alabama. It kind of breaks up on arrival, and the rain chances are a little bit better during the afternoon. The timestamp here is 2 o'clock. You'll see those scattered showers, a few rumbles of thunder coming in from the west, and that's what we're left with by 6 o'clock Thursday evening. I wish I had better news on the pollen front. You know, when we're talking about rain, typically that at least temporarily alleviates our pollen concerns, but tree pollen, grass pollen, still big culprits here, especially grass pollen expected to read very high for Wednesday. Rainfall totals, not exactly great. We don't really need the rain right now. We're not going to really get the rain right now. Most locations picking up about ½ an inch of rain in total. Slightly higher amounts farther toward the west. They're locally higher amounts exceeding 3/4 of an inch are possible. We're going to pick back up here Thursday evening. Here comes that cold front, that line of rain that kind of breaks up as it's moving through. By the time we wake up on Friday, most of that's out of here. I think that this data source clears us out a little bit early, but you can see that north wind there indicated by those streamlines. That's going to pull in the cooler air. We're at 73 degrees, your forecast high for Friday, 75 on Saturday. The sunshine is back in time for the weekend. Coach Nick Saban was in Tuscaloosa when the 2011 tornadoes hit.
On the 10-year anniversary, he shares his experiences on the Alabama campus that day.
Strike!
Don't let your credit keep you from crossing the home plate.
If you bring home $350 per week, the Credit Clinic at University Kia wants to approve you. Drive home a new 2020 Kia Rio for only $14,995.
Only at University Kia.
Millions of customers are leaving their providers and switching to Spectrum. And if you have AT&T with DirecTV, it's not hard to see why. Because while AT&T charges you extra for an internet modem, Spectrum gives it to you for free.
They do?
Yeah, they do. And Spectrum has the fastest download speeds with the most reliable performance. Get Spectrum Internet with speeds at 200 megabits for $44.99 a month. Call 833-970-4499. Spectrum wins on TV, too. Unlike AT&T with DirecTV Select, Spectrum has more free HD and free on-demand, and sports channels are included.
Wow, really?
Really? Plus, get exclusive original content with Spectrum Originals. Get Spectrum TV from $44.99 a month. Call 833-970-4499. And unlike AT&T with DirecTV, Spectrum doesn't have contracts or early termination fees. We'll even buy out your current contract up to $500. Switch to America's fastest growing internet, TV, and voice provider. Get Spectrum Internet and TV from $44.99 a month each. Ask about our easy self-install options. Call 833-970-4499.
Strike!
Don't let your credit keep you from crossing the home plate.
If you bring home $350 per week, the Credit Clinic at University Kia wants to approve you. Drive home a new 2020 Kia Rio for only $14,995.
Only at University Kia.
Sign up today to get breaking news and headlines from WAAY 31.
Make 2021 the year you refresh your home. And who you gonna call to help? Story and Lee. With our 3 acres of showroom and our huge warehouse, we're sure to have exactly what you want. We are Story and Lee.
Chevy is America's fastest growing full-line brand, and people are taking it everywhere. Taking Trailblazer outdoors, confidently taking on new places with Equinox, and taking on more with Silverado. Whatever you do, there's a perfect Chevy to take you anywhere. Find your perfect Chevy and get up to 17% of MSRP cash back on select 2021 models. That's over $5,400 cash back on this Equinox. See your Tennessee Valley Chevy dealers.
Oh, I love this show. What's this? Couch corn. Buttercream. Nice, Carol.
It's Karen.
Is this yours?
Really?
Come on, guys, not the jingle. He dies at the end.
We're private investigators. We're just trying to help.
The things that family's capable of, they're ruthless. Every last one of them. This would go a lot better if you didn't play me for the fool.
I'm just playing the cards you're dealing.
Why is everyone so afraid?
Big Sky, new tonight on ABC.
Make 2021 the year you refresh your home. And who you gonna call to help? Story and Lee. With our 3 acres of showroom and our huge warehouse, we're sure to have exactly what you want. We are Story and Lee.
New at 6. Hospitalizations dropped for children in 2020 compared to previous years. Health researchers say weekly admissions to hospitals decreased more than 48% in 2020. That's compared to numbers recorded between 2017 and 2019. Researchers say access to care for children may have been hindered because of COVID-19 mitigation measures. And this includes social distancing and increased thresholds for emergency and hospital care. Using rideshare services like Uber and Lyft could make traffic jams last longer. And that's according to researchers at MIT. Researchers point to what they call deadheading miles, or miles the cars traveled without a passenger. They believe it's having a negative impact on traffic.
The Corn Ferry Tour is underway. The Huntsville Championship is one of 28 stops showcasing the best up-and-coming golfers on their way to the PGA. Participants get a few days of practice before teeing off for the first round at the Ledges on Thursday. Gates open at 6:30 in the morning each day.
April 27th, 2011, the day that changed Tuscaloosa forever. A town known for its football turned into absolute destruction after deadly tornadoes ravished the area. It's been 10 years since that day. But Nick Saban and those who lived through the storms won't forget that day anytime soon. Saban says he still remembers driving home and housing 20 of his daughter's sorority sisters as they all took cover. While he was with them, Saban was constantly thinking about his players who were sheltering from the storm wherever they could.
It was a pretty anxious time, to be honest with you. And that anxiety didn't really let up until, the next day when we sort of could assess the damage. We lost, one of our players lost, his fiance, which was, certainly something that was very difficult for all the players to deal with. But there was also, growing out of that anxiety, a tremendous response, to help people in the community. So it was a pretty anxious day, no doubt.
The player Saban is talking about is Carson Tinker, the Bama long snapper whose house got destroyed, killing Ashley Harrison. The team had to come together, supporting each other and Tuscaloosa. After the storm, Saban and Miss Terry promised to build 13 houses after the tornado, one for each national championship. They're still building houses through Habitat for Humanity.
When we talk about natural disasters, many times you're able to pinpoint a ground zero.
In hurricanes and earthquakes, there's one specific location hit harder than the rest. A unique and devastating part of April 27, 2011 is that our entire state became ground zero. The storms killed more people in Alabama than any other state impacted by the outbreak. Houses were blown apart, down to their foundations. Cities, towns, and rural communities were all forced to rebuild. 10 years later, some still haven't finished those efforts. But despite the loss and setback, change has happened. Families have survived pain they never thought possible. Memorials now stand, and technology has advanced. Over the next half hour, we'll show you how that change has happened. Our team traveled across North Alabama, gathering stories from those who lost the most that day and others who dedicated themselves to helping neighbors and strangers recover. Changed forever, the April 27th tornadoes starts now.
The following is a special presentation of WAAY 31 News. Changed forever, the April 27 tornadoes.
Changed forever. April's fury devastating the Southeast.
This has been the worst thing I've ever had to go through in my life.
Hundreds of people killed across Alabama in the worst natural disaster since Hurricane Katrina.
Almost like a nuclear weapon, hit an area.
Thousands injured and virtually no life left untouched as the state was rocked by multiple EF5 tornadoes.
We're used to having tornadoes in DeKalb County, but we've never seen anything like this.
10 years later, we're revisiting the events of 2011.
We're just going to have to pick up the pieces and start all over again.
And the memories and lessons from that day. This tornado siren is one of dozens replaced or upgraded following the outbreak in 2011. In fact, I'm standing in the area where the Hackleburg-Phil Campbell EF5 tracked through Tanner. At this point in time, it had wind of nearly 200 miles per hour and went on to level homes just down the road. I'm Chief Meteorologist Kate McKenna in Limestone County. That EF5 was one of a record-breaking 362 tornadoes that took the lives of an estimated 321 people in more than a dozen states. The stories behind those numbers paint a picture of loss, of resilience, and a commitment to moving forward. Over the next half hour, we'll introduce to you the people who lost the most that day, their loved ones, their homes, and their lives as they knew them before April 27th, 2011. But as we remember the victims of that day, we're also looking at how their memories and how their legacies inspired life-saving changes for the next generation. April 27th brought what was essentially non-stop severe weather for 24 hours. The first round started before sunrise. The National Weather Service confirmed over a dozen tornadoes touched down in Alabama before 6:30 a.m. In North Alabama, the strongest tornadoes of the morning were a trio of EF2s with wind of 120 miles per hour, one near Holly Pond, one at Lake Gunnersville, and another near Henniger. Around lunchtime, a second round of half a dozen or so weak EF0 and EF1 tornadoes spun up, mainly in Limestone and Madison counties. That's the afternoon wave that would ultimately put this day in the record books. Alabama's deadliest tornado of the day developed at 3 p.m., an EF5 that will go on to kill 6 dozen people, many of them in North Alabama in the small town of Phil Campbell. Those deaths leave a lasting impact on the town of roughly 1,000. WAAY 31's Brecken Terry sat down with people who lived through the storm and its aftermath.
On that day, I lost 7 family members.
It's a miracle the Phil Campbell tornado spared Heather Taylor. She and her husband jumped into the car to get to her family's home on Wyatt Drive, where they thought they would be safer.
It was just the grace of God that we didn't make it because there was a tree on each side of the road and we couldn't get here. So we ran into one of the neighbors' houses that we knew and stayed there and rode the storm out.
When they stepped outside, devastation surrounded them. 210-mile-per-hour winds took Taylor's mom, Patricia Gentry, her stepdad, Don, and many other family members on this small stretch of land.
You don't picture that happening to your family. You see it on movies and things and on the news, but you never picture it happening to you and to your family.
I asked Taylor how she made it through so much loss, pain, and sorrow. She told me in a way her mom prepared her for this moment.
She was like, I just feel like I'm going to be going home soon. And she talked about heaven a lot because, she was a gospel singer and everything, but she never really said that.
The Easter holiday fell on the weekend before the tornado hit. She said it was one last beautiful memory with her loved ones.
At the time, my husband and I were praying for babies and everything, and she just starts asking questions like, what are you going to name your kids? And she gave me like little gifts for them and stuff like that. And it's kind of like she was already preparing me.
The storm scattered and destroyed most of the family photos, meaning there are fewer physical reminders of their love. But a friend made sure her two boys would always have a connection to her mom and Dawn through this painting of them all together.
I think that coming up on this anniversary, it just really makes me miss them more, really. It makes me realize the years that my kids have missed with them.
Many families in Phil Campbell still wear the emotional scars of April 27th, but so do the first responders who work tirelessly to help their neighbors and community.
We just started pulling people out. We would just go to houses and anybody that was there. I didn't care, if he was hurt or not. We were taking everybody to the Phil Campbell Rescue Squad because that was the command center.
Blue Springs Volunteer Fire Department Chief Mary Glass said there are things she saw on April 27th that she'll never be able to talk about.
When we ran up on the deceased, we had to tag them, and we did that, and that was hard. It was very hard. You would just do the best you could because you knew there was still a lot of people out there.
Volunteers didn't stop working for weeks. At one point, Glass and a fellow firefighter heard crying and found an injured 5-year-old boy in a tree.
Jeremy crawled in and got him out of the trees, handed him to me, and I took off with him.
That's Glass holding the child. He lost both of his parents that day. Glass lost family members too. She said it was hard to process her own grief while surrounded by so much loss.
I know this is bad, but, we can't be crying right now. We got to help. And they said, no, you don't understand. Said Mikey and Kelly's got killed. And at the time, it just did not settle in with me who they were talking about because there was so much devastation. And one of them grabbed me and he shook me and he said, do you realize who I'm telling you just got killed? And I said, you said Mikey and Kelly. I said, I don't. He said, Mary, your cousin. And I just started crying.
Glass said only people who lived through that day will understand how devastating it was.
As first responders, we're human too. And usually when you're helping people in your community, you know them all.
A community made up of dedicated first responders, loving families, and resilience. In Phil Campbell, Brecken Terry, WAAY 31 News.
After the storm, Phil Campbell was tasked with not just rebuilding physically, but spiritually. WAAY 31's Marie Waxel covered the aftermath of these storms in 2011 and returned to talk to people who led both of those efforts a decade ago.
I got rotation coming through Phil Campbell right now.
It will never go away.
Retired Phil Campbell Elementary School Principal Jackie Ergel vividly recalls spending hours in the hallway before sending people home.
I would say, Lord, please lift this warning so that we can get our children home. Just let us have time.
10 years later, a scrapbook preserving the town's defining moment in history now sits on a corner shelf in the school's library.
War zone is what I think about.
Each page, a bittersweet reminder of not just the pain, but the compassion that poured in.
And we saw the awesomeness of so many through this disaster. But in our hearts, we lost 2 precious children. I'll never forget the day I walked into their classroom. Did those 2 desks to help the teachers. We had to, clean their little things out, what was left to give to their parents.
Among the deaths in Phil Campbell were 10-year-old Ethan Knox, 9-year-old Edgar Mojica, and 2nd grade teacher Patricia Gentry.
It says Miss Gentry was the best teacher I ever knew. She was a good friend, a great person. She loved each and every one of us.
With the high school and surrounding area leveled, the elementary school turned into a safe haven for the community.
We learned that life isn't certain. We don't know about the next day.
A place to start to heal.
And I'll never forget the day that our children returned to school. They wanted a hug. They wanted to tell you about the tornado, their own interpretations of what happened. And not only that, but in their eyes, you could see that they needed us and we needed them.
You're never going to replace all the people we lost that day.
To this day, former Mayor Steve Bell credits a small group of people who found funding to create the town's memorial park less than a year later.
Started the healing process, just the recognition of those that we had lost. And it's a reminder of what can happen so quickly.
10 years have passed, yet visible scars still remain. Businesses slowly returning. The rebuild not complete.
A lot of the houses have never been built back. A lot of people have not moved back to town. A lot of them just moved away. It changed not only the landscape, but just the complete makeup of town.
It's been a long road for the people of Phil Campbell, and while progress can be seen, the road to recovery never truly ends.
Never give up hope. Never give up hope.
Marie Waxel, WAAY 31 News.
That's just one of the hundreds of stories of survival and resilience we've had the privilege of sharing. Coming up, we'll show you how, in the days following April 27th, people from almost every walk of life come together to step in and rebuild Alabama.
Changed forever, the April 27th tornadoes.
Grand Prix is on. Landers McClarty Nissan. Upgrade to a fuel-efficient new Nissan Altima. Win big on pricing. Win big with our Easy Pass top dollar appraisal. Before it ends, race into Landers McClarty Nissan.
During the storms of 2011, J.D. Stevens grabbed a chainsaw and started helping his neighbors clear trees. That's how North Alabama Tree Service got its start. They specialize in dangerous trees, large trees, and multi-tree removal. They even removed one full of beehives. And they saved the bees. North Alabama Tree Service is licensed and insured with workers' comp insurance and features the latest technologies in the tree removal industry. Call or look them up online. NorthAlabamaTreeService.com. North Alabama Tree Service, LLC. Keeping you safe.
Attorney Joe King, how can I help you?
Hi, my wife was in a bad car wreck and needed surgery. She's home now recovering, but the hospital's filed a huge lien against us, and I don't know what to do.
You made the right call. We handle cases like this every day.
Morris King and Hodge were right there for us. They got the hospital lien and all the medical bills taken care of, and got my wife $1 million.
And Morris King and Hodge, we're ready to listen and we're ready to help. Call us. We'll be right there.
Call 256-999-9000.
You need a storm shelter, but who do you trust? Supercell Shelters. We offer above ground and in-ground shelters that have been tested at Texas Wind Institute to withstand an F5 tornado. We're also FEMA approved. Our installation process is fast and easy. So call now to keep your family safe. 542-8205. That's Supercell Shelters at 256-542-8205. SupercellShelters.com.
The HSB Grand Prix is on. Landers McClarty Nissan. Win big on pricing. Win big with our Easy Pass top dollar appraisal. We'll buy your vehicle even if you don't buy from us. Before it ends, race into Landers McClarty Nissan.
You're watching Changed Forever, the April 27th tornadoes. Respectfully presented by North Alabama Tree Service and Supercell Shelters.
Before that EF5 tornado hit Phil Campbell, a large tornado dropped from a thunderstorm near Smith Lake in Coleman County. That was at 2:40 p.m. Over the course of the next hour, it grew into a mile-wide monster, packing winds of 175 miles per hour, an EF4, blowing apart homes and businesses, raking the landscape across 3 counties. 9 members of one family were huddled inside a small bathroom in a house in Ruth, not far from Arab in Marshall County. The house exploded around them. 5 of them were killed. One of the survivors was 6-year-old Ari Hallmark. Ari lost both her parents, her paternal grandparents, and a young cousin. But she has turned that unimaginable tragedy into something positive. As WAAY 31's Dan Schaefer shares, for the past 10 years, she's been telling a remarkable story of healing and heaven and a higher purpose.
I was found about 200 yards from the house, somewhere over in this field over here, and my whole family was actually found all together.
10 years ago today, Ari Hallmark's life changed forever. So many lives were lost. So many lives changed that day, of course. But for Ari, right from the day the tornado took her loved ones, she's been at peace, not dwelling on the tragedy, but on her belief in the triumph of eternal life after death.
I think that it was kind of a God thing that, I knew that they were all together and that they were going to be okay, because I worried a lot.
Before the tornado, Ari had dreams about her parents dying, whether her grandparents would go to heaven. Not premonitions, she says, just the insecurities of a small child. It seems strange to say, but she says the tornado put her mind at ease about all that.
I got to watch my parents go into heaven.
She remembers watching her family go to heaven that day. And she was there too, briefly, before an angel brought her back to that field where she was found.
I think my main reason, the higher purpose of me surviving, is that I have a message. I think that I can help a ton of people. I know that I have. And that brings me peace.
With the help of a family friend who had some counseling experience, a young Ari was able to draw and write about her near-death experience. It became the book To Heaven After the Storm, and a recent follow-up booklet for children about how she's able to move past the literal and figurative dark clouds of that day.
She's been brave and courageous and told her story ever since.
Ari's maternal grandmother, Susan Garmany, lost her daughter, Ari's mom, in that same storm. She adopted Ari, calls her grandchild child.
She's a precious girl, and she has a story to tell, and that's what she wants to do, to encourage other people.
A neighbor who lives here off Ruth Road put up this memorial and dedicated it to the 5 people who lost their lives. They planted 5 trees here to represent those lives, and they also etched these words into a granite stone. Those of us who survived owe it to those who didn't to never forget. God bless the memory of the Hallmark family, Philip, Ann, Shane, Jennifer, and Jaden, April 27th, 2011. Those of us who survived owe it to those who didn't to never forget. And those are words by which Ari has dedicated and is now living her life.
She's been through it, and she knows, the ups and downs, and she has a lot of ups.
Thanks to her book, Ari hears from others now working through their own grief who have found hope and help in her strength.
They just try to confide in me through my story, and I find joy in that.
As one whose life came so close to being cut so short, she's determined to help as many as she can weather their own storms.
Even though I guess that's about the saddest thing that will ever happen to me, I had something very special happen to me that day, and I'm so glad that I get to share it all with you.
By April 28th, cleanup efforts were happening almost everywhere in the state. Cities, towns, and rural communities immediately stepped up to pick up the pieces of what was left behind. WAAY 31's Pat Simon shares how the Rainsville community did just that.
There was destruction everywhere.
10 years.
It's been overwhelming.
Feels more like 10 seconds ago.
Oh, man.
For Brian Harris, the pastor at Mountain View Baptist Church.
I was more worried about, hey, is everybody okay?
Incredible sight to see you guys.
While the building where he preached inside for so many Sundays was leveled by that fierce tornado.
Tried to just get out and see who needs help.
Its true foundation remained stronger than ever.
The church is the people. It's us. It's God's people. We didn't call anybody. We didn't ask for help.
They didn't need to. Greg Graham is a 5th-generation member of the church. He says kindness and compassion just started showing up.
About 10 cars and trucks pull up, and it's a church from Cherokee County, Alabama, said, we're here to help.
And they did. along with others, to rebuild this church. But before that, as they were sifting through all the debris, the people of this shaken community discovered why they all come together on more than just Sundays.
Yeah, the church bell.
As a kid, Graham and his grandfather repaired that old church bell. It was lost in the storm, but then found.
And now it's part of our sign.
A sign of renewal and hope, like this restored church piano that was once covered in all that debris.
Those are little things that are witness to our survival.
Perhaps this tattered songbook that was also found, open to this page, says it best.
It says, triumphantly, the church will rise. And it did.
And its members and community did too.
We've always wanted a farm. We've always wanted a lot of land.
Cassie and David Miller now live in this home, built from scratch. Her childhood home was destroyed in the storm, and that wasn't the worst of it. No insurance.
It was just like starting over. I felt like we were 18 again.
They leaned on the church to help them get through.
It's really like family.
In Rainsville, Pat Simon, WAAY 31 News.
The tornado outbreak on April 27, 2011 changed the way that we plan for and respond to severe weather events. Coming up, we'll walk you through the updates that have been made to keep you and your loved ones safe in case something like this ever happens again.
Changed forever. The April 27 tornadoes.
During the storms of 2011, J.D. Stevens grabbed a chainsaw and started helping his neighbors clear trees. That's how North Alabama Tree Service got its start. They specialize in dangerous trees, large trees, and multi-tree removal. They even removed one full of beehives. And they saved the bees. North Alabama Tree Service is licensed and insured with workers' comp insurance and features the latest technologies in the tree removal industry. Call or look them up online. NorthAlabamaTreeService.com. North Alabama Tree Service, LLC. Keeping you safe.
My little boy just keeps growing up. It seems like every time I turn around, he can do more, say more, get into a whole lot more. It's a constant reminder to always be vigilant and be ready to help him back up after a fall. I'm Tyler Mann. It's my job as a father to protect my son, and it's my job as a lawyer to protect you. If you've been injured, I'm your man.
Tyler Mann Injury Law, 256-400-4000.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3,
2. You need a storm shelter, but who do you trust? Supercell Shelters. We offer above ground and in-ground shelters that have been tested at Texas Wind Institute to withstand an F5 tornado. We're also FEMA approved. Our installation process is fast and easy. So call now to keep your family safe. 542-8205. That's Supercell Shelters at 256-542-8205. SupercellShelters.com.
You're watching Changed Forever, the April 27 tornadoes, respectfully presented by North Alabama Tree Service and Supercell Shelters.
Even though I'm used to covering tornadoes after all these years, you never probably get used to one coming straight at you.
Even though we settled on our motto, coverage you can count on, within the last few years, it's something our team has always demonstrated. Many of you were watching when meteorologist Gary Dobbs had to stop his live report to take shelter. His home was leveled by an EF5 tornado. He survived with bruises and cracked ribs after being hit by debris as the tornado ripped apart his home. Over the past 10 years, the technology used that day has been advanced and refined to be even more effective during severe weather events. Meteorologist Carson Meredith explains.
You know, I had worked several severe weather events prior to that, and April 27th, it just felt different.
Jessica Chase is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Huntsville. In 2011, she was working at the National Weather Service in Birmingham when the warning process was set into motion for a series of powerful supercells that created violent tornadoes, including the EF4 that hit Tuscaloosa and Birmingham.
We never want to be wrong, but we don't want to be right when it comes to severe weather outbreaks.
This is the area that we're looking at.
In the last decade, technology advancements have made it easier to accurately track storms. Dual polarization radars now give us the ability not only to see what's happening inside storms, but also to accurately determine whether or not a tornado is on the ground. And thanks to smartphones, everyone now receives an emergency alert instantly, no matter where you are. But it's not just the technology that has evolved. Meteorologists now collaborate with social scientists to craft forecast messages and use social media to fine-tune those messages in real time.
Finding out how to message, finding out what words to use, what words are confusing. So we're able to kind of have a little bit more real-time interaction with the public so that, we can quickly change our messaging if it is confusing or, push out more messaging.
There will always be room for improvement, which is why Chase says the past helps prepare us for the future.
We want to make sure that we go back and look and see, is there something that we can apply from that to future events to better message, better prepare.
In Huntsville, meteorologist Carson Meredith, WAAY 31 News.
The 2011 outbreak also showed us that safe spaces can come in all kinds of forms. And in many cases, the decision to take shelter saved lives. But there's also a new tool we have in our arsenal when it comes to making sure you know what kind of severe weather is heading your way, so that you have plenty of time to get to your safe place. Late in the summer of 2020, we launched the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network. We now have a network of 3 radars, one in Muscle Shoals, one in Decatur covering the Huntsville area, and one in Gunnersville. This gives us coverage across all of North Alabama, closing that coverage gap that previously existed around the shoals, a gap in radar data from the National Weather Service radar sites at High Top, Alabama and Columbus, Mississippi. So now we've got high quality data for all of North Alabama, and it's live real-time radar data. There's no lag in coverage here. There's no lag in the stream coming into our studio. We are getting minute-by-minute scans. That's up to 6 times faster than those National Weather Service radars that take anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes to produce a single scan. It's also 10 times greater resolution, down to the street level. That makes it easier to find those small, low-level circulations inside a tornado, for example. And we also have complete control over these radars. That means that in the event of severe weather, we can point these radars where we need to provide a better forecast for you. Alabama was changed forever on April 27, 2011. But in the last 10 years, we've made strides to honor and remember the victims while making changes to improve and refine our severe weather plan. It's a work in progress, but the lessons learned every time severe weather strikes saves valuable moments in a worst-case scenario.
Thank you for watching this special presentation of WAAY 31 News. For more than 60 years, North Alabama has turned to WAAY 31 for trusted news, weather, and information. Coverage you can count on air, online, on your phone. WAAY 31. We track storms to keep you safe, and we do it with the most powerful and precise local radar network ever built. The WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Early Warning Radar Network, the only live radar system that can scan every community in North Alabama, tracking storms accurately long before they reach our area, and seeing details other radars miss, so you get the earliest warnings. We track storms to keep you safe. WAAY 31, weather coverage you can count on.
The FBI calls home title theft.